This is Take Me Out, the ultimate podcast about ballparks and the baseball experience. It's February 12th, 2025. I'm Alexandra Ellis, and I'm joining my friend Timothy Malcolm.
What's up, baseball fans, and what's up, Alex? How are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you? Probably not as good as you with your Eagles winning the ship.
Well, yeah, that old thing.
That old song and dance.
It's now old hat here because the Eagles have won their second Super Bowl championship in 7 years or something like that now, and it was amazing. Sunday was incredible. I partied. We had a couple people over, very small gathering, a lot of kids, but it was a lot of fun. My 8-year-old is now at the age where she understands what winning is and what that feels like and all that. So she was hugging me all over the place. We were having a great time and had a lot of food, had a lot of drinks, just a wonderful night. And now I have video of the Eagles dismantling the Chiefs that I can go back and look at forever and ever now. And it's really wonderful.
So with the give and take with sports, since she understands the victory, the taste of victory, she's going to understand the agony of defeat soon. Probably.
Well, no, she does, because she watched
already.
the 2022 World Series with me and knows what happened
with
there.
That one? Wait.
Oh, I don't want to talk about it right now. There's
okay.
who's in the room that would even care about the 2022 World Series.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
definitely not the girl with an Astros tattoo on her leg. Not her.
That's right. But speaking of baseball and Astros tattoos and all of that,
it's happening.
Pitchers and catchers reporting
today. God. Today. Oh, Astros are
tomorrow. Astros are tomorrow, Thursday. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Pitchers and catchers for the Phillies are reporting today. A lot of teams are reporting today. A couple teams have reported a little bit earlier. I want to say Cleveland maybe did, or the Dodgers and Cubs may have done earlier because they started in Japan this year. But we're here. Spring training has started.
Oh, comes close to opening day is one of my favorite days of my favorite day of the year. Pitchers and catchers and opening day. I mean, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Sorry, Christmas, but this is the most wonderful time of the year.
Okay, very quickly, rank the baseball days. What are the top 3 baseball days for you each year? It can be as precise or as abstract as possible.
I want to rank pitchers and catchers as the best because the opportunities are endless. You're kind of starting off from scratch. And it's kind of cool in the days leading up to it. You get the teams release the reports of who's going to be on the roster and all the invites, and you're just you see these names you've never seen before, and 2 years later, they're World Series MVP. And it's just being introduced to that stuff and seeing what is still there to be developed that can explode into greatness is really, really cool. It's just, again, the opportunities are endless. Pitchers and catchers report, everyone thinks they're going to win the championship. So it's just it's a pretty cool experience, I think.
So would that be your one, series. Or is opening day your one?
That would be one.
Okay.
And then opening day is a very close second.
Okay.
Very close second.
If there's a third, what is the third? It can be abstract. So I would say, if I were to put one in there, I would say, and this isn't really abstract actually, the Phillies every year have an alumni weekend where they bring all the old players in the ballpark and they have people in the commentary booth and they induct somebody into the Wall of Fame, and it's a whole thing. But the day of the Wall of Fame enshrinement, which is usually, I think it might be the Sunday afternoon, I forget. But they have all the alumni come out and they take the field and they line up and then they surround the person who's being inducted. Maybe it's a Saturday night. Either way, that's a lot of fun because you get to see all the old players and somebody always gives a good speech. And then in the booth for the game, John Kruk, who's insanely awesome and crabby and fun, he always has banter with the old players who come in there. So that's a really fun day. I always look forward to alumni weekend for the Phillies.
Actually, you know what? Number 3, that kind of brings up Hall of Fame weekend. I mean,
oh yeah, there you go. There you go.
This year's going to be especially great for the Astros. It's got Billy Wagner
and the Phillies on a small, yeah. But, well, yes, his last year of eligibility. I'm glad he made it in. As somebody, he played for the Phillies for 2 seasons, and they were they were great seasons for him, but kind of forgettable in the overall. But he's on that sort of fringe of deserving it to me. That's just I'm not a big Hall guy, but it's fine. I don't mind Billy Wagner.
I want to know who the lone holdout was for Suzuki not getting unionymous.
Yeah, that person should be revoked. You should revoke that person.
Come on, let's have a seat. Let's talk really fast. So where you see yourself, not even the next 5 years, but the next year.
What was it about Ichiro that made that person go, you know what? I just don't think it's his year. What is that?
I don't know. That? Just maybe they birthed their coffee in the morning and just decided if they're not gonna have a good day, no one is. I don't know.
It's possible it's someone who was like, oh, we don't want to put someone in the first ballot ever. That's such a, I don't know. What a dumb rule. Ichiro belongs in the Hall of Fame,
just
first
glad
ballot.
I'm not that bitter of a person. I don't know if they're bitter or not, but I'm just assuming that.
Right. Well, good days. Very good days. So, yes, pitchers and catchers report, opening day, Hall of Fame weekend, your team's local alumni Hall of Fame weekend, all very good days. This is one of the big ones. Pitchers and catchers reporting right now this week. And this is Take Me Out. We are starting the season coming up here, and we have a lot of great stuff coming up over the next several weeks. This is, of course, as you said in the open, the ultimate podcast about ballparks and the baseball experience. We're going to give you tips. We're going to give you reviews. We're going to give you interviews, all kinds of things about going to the ball game and, of course, the ballparks. And this week on Take Me Out, we are going to take a little bit of a deeper dive, not a huge deep dive, but a deep enough dive into spring training, and specifically Florida, the Grapefruit League. We're going to give you the rough guide to Grapefruit League spring training. That means the west coast of Florida, the east coast of Florida. This is going to be a lot of fun because it's the first time we're going to give you a lot of tips on a specific place. And yeah, we're going to do that. And that'll be a really fun meat of the podcast this week.
Forward to it. It'll be great.
So before we get there, I just want to tell people that if you are new to this podcast, which you probably are because this is our second episode, we are all over social media. We're getting there. We're starting to fill that up. We're getting that space going. So we are on Facebook. Where are we on Facebook? What is the address?
I believe if I remember, it's facebook.com/takemeoutpod.
That is correct.
Yes.
We started an Instagram account that we haven't filled up yet, but what would that be?
It would be at takemeoutpod.
That's right. We're also on YouTube. If you want to watch the podcast on video, you can watch myself and Alex. Where are we on YouTube? What is the address there?
Is it youtube.com/takemeoutpod?
Also right. We are YouTube.
3 for 3. Let's go.
Yes. So YouTube's addresses are the @ symbol, and then it's at Take Me Out Pod. Or you can just type in Take Me Out Podcast on the search and you probably can find us there. So that's where we are right now. YouTube, we're on Instagram, and we're on what did we say? What was the other thing that we're on? Facebook. Yes. And hopefully at some point we'll get on Blue Sky. Did we get a Take Me Out Blue Sky yet?
I don't think so.
That should be on me, probably. We'll do that, and hopefully, like in the future, we'll be on everything. Not everything, but almost everything. We'll see what happens. We'll see where we go with social media. But that's where you can find us. We are on every podcast feed that you can find: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. Tell your friends, tell your baseball fan-loving people in the world, your family members, your friends about us. If you like going to ball games, if you like checking out ballparks and just being out in different parts of the country, different parts of North America, you should want to listen to this podcast because we're going to give you everything you need to have the best possible experience at the ball game. So again, Take Me Out Pod, wherever you find your podcast, social media, all that jazz. Look for us, and we'll keep getting the word out, obviously. Okay. Yeah, we're good. I'll stop there. That's all
right, we are back. And do you want to get into some news, Tim?
Let's do the news.
Let's do some news. All right, we're going to start up with Milwaukee. Milwaukee Brewers announce additions to American Family Field for 25. Adam, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name, McAlvey of MLB.com reports that the Milwaukee Brewers have added a food truck park called The Alley to its left field lounge level. That sounds awesome. It will include local food entities serving out of stationary truck replicas. They're also going to transform 1,600 seats in right field as the team expands its baseball operations office. And the team will start using facial recognition software for entry this season. Finally, the Brewers are in talks to create a more permanent installation to memorialize the late announcer and baseball figure Bob Uecker.
So the Brewers doing food trucks, which a few parks are now doing that. I know when I was in Oakland, when they were in Oakland at the old O.O.O.O.O. Coliseum, whatever it was called back then. The Coliseum. Some would say Coliseum.
I was thinking about that. I didn't want to go there, but you did. Cool.
I mean, they're not playing there anymore. It's okay. And please, we all know. We talked about Oakland last episode. I love those people. They had a food truck park in there. I want to say it was in the outfield, kind of beyond center field. I think outside of the park there. Mm-hmm. A couple other parks are doing food trucks or something like food trucks. Where was I at recently that had a pretty good food truck setup in the outfield. Oh, I can't remember. But even like Dodger Stadium has vendors that look like food trucks. I mean, that's kind of the hip thing to do right now. And this seemingly they'll bring in local food vendors and they'll put them in these sort of stations that look like food trucks, I guess, in a sense, so that they can actually have them on site and they're operational and they're not like trucks that make a lot of noise. Makes sense. That's a good thing. The more local food you can get into a ballpark, the better. I just love having local food in ballparks. So that alone is great. The Bob Uecker thing is definitely something I hope that they kind of really go big on. You haven't been to that ballpark, have you?
That is one of the remaining 7 I still have not been to.
One of the remaining 7. So at American Family Field, they already have. So what they were talking about in this article was potentially doing something like a Bob Uecker experience. So at American Family, they have the Bud Selig experience. So Bud Selig, a former commissioner of baseball, he was the owner of the, I guess, was he the owner of the Braves? And then, he was a businessman in Milwaukee who brought the Brewers to Milwaukee. He brought the Braves to Milwaukee and renamed them the Brewers. That is what happened. And no, that's not right. Let me get that. Let me circle back. The Braves were in Milwaukee. They left Milwaukee to go to Atlanta. Then he decided he wanted a team back in Milwaukee. The city deserved a baseball team. And so I believe it was the Seattle Pilots that he brought to Milwaukee. And then they became the Brewers. I believe that is the correct history there. But Selig was, of course, the integral person in bringing baseball back to Milwaukee back then. This was back in the 60s, 70s. And then he became the commissioner years later. They have what is a video presentation about Selig's life. It's like in the left field corner of American Family in the upper level. You could go in. It's a free show. They play it every 25 minutes or something like that. You sit down in the little theater there and they play the 20-minute, episode about his life and the history of the Brewers. And then you can walk through and they have a couple like exhibit things, including you look into a replica of Selig's office at, I think, Old County Stadium, I want to say. And so it's a really cool, like old looking office kind of thing and it's how it looked, that kind of thing. So if they do something similar for Uecker, where it is a 15-minute movie on Bob Uecker's life, baseball career, becoming an actor, Mr. Belvedere, the Miller Lite commercials, the Major League stuff, which is amazing, his, of course, Brewers broadcasting career, he was a Brewers broadcaster for decades, that would be great. I would love to see something like that.
All that in 15 minutes, but...
I mean, you can fit. They fit like the Selig story in 15 or 20 minutes, and that includes the story of baseball Milwaukee history, essentially. So they could do that well, I think. And you do that, and you have maybe you put the Bob Uecker seat in that little area because they have the Uecker seat up at the very top of American Family. The I must be in the front row seat, all the way up there. If they do something like that, put those things together. Make for a really nice little place that you can go and hang out with your family. The thing about the Selig experience that's great is if you have a family with kids and it's a hot day at American Family, yes, it's a retractable stadium, so the temperature is pretty good. But if you're kind of tired and you want somewhere to sit for 20 minutes in a dark room, that's a pretty good option, is to go to the Selig experience. So it's a nice way to spend some time. So that sounds great. I'm glad that the Brewers are thinking about Bob Uecker in that way, and he's obviously was a huge part of the Milwaukee franchise history, and obviously changing the seating there at American Family in right field so that they can add on baseball ops offices. Baseball operations offices are getting bigger and bigger these days as more and more positions are grown, more staff positions, more video programming positions, things like that. And then also that stadium feels like one they're going to stay in for even longer. If they're going to actually change the seating to fit more offices, it feels like they're going to be an American Family for years to come, which is good. I think that's a ballpark that's actually grown on me in the last couple of years. The first time I went, I wasn't very high on it, but my last time I went there, I saw more of what makes it kind of a decent park.
Cool. Yeah. That's not one of the older parks. It's still only, 15-ish years old?
It's more like 20 to 25. I think it opened in 2000, 99, 2000, 2001, like somewhere in that range.
It feels newer to me. I don't know why. Time is relative. I don't know. Sure. Well, yeah, that's definitely one of the last ones I'm excited to check out. If I can maybe even try to swing it this year, I will. But
and I'll give you the full guide. We'll give you the full guide to Milwaukee before you go on your trip to Milwaukee. We'll do a guide on Milwaukee. How about that?
Stoked for it. It's a deal. Let's do it. All right, moving on to something a little bit more local here. Astros changed the signage from Minute Maid Park to Daikin Field. Daikin? Did we agree it was Daikin or Daikin?
Oh, I still don't know. I think it's Daikin.
Okay.
It's Daikin
Okay.
Park, I think.
Daikin, I'm like posting pictures of it, and I actually drove by the park, and one of the gates still has like a little Minute Maid Park. I'm like, let's pretend they're gonna forget that one, and it's just gonna leave that there. That'd be really cool. It's so.
Did you have any thoughts about swiping it away? Maybe some illicit activity.
I did not happen to have a forklift or anything with me at the time.
Okay.
I should be more prepared next time.
So, because I could comment on it, but you're an Astros fan? You've lived here. You went to that park so many times. How do you feel about the name change?
I mean, it's going to happen eventually. I didn't think it was going to happen for another 10 years. I mean, they had a contract till it was supposed to be. I mean, was it up for it, the renaming? I didn't look into that, but I thought it was supposed to be a lot longer. I just think, good for them. Like, I guess good for both entities, but I think this Minute Maid Park just sounds like more of a baseball name, It's kind of corny in a way, but, the juice box is such a fun nickname for it. And it's going to be so hard to not say that anymore. I mean, the ice box, I guess, is fine too, but Minute Maid, it just sounds like baseball to me.
I like Icebox a lot as a nickname. I like Juicebox a lot as a nickname. I think Minute Maid naming rights were up in a couple years. I want to say 2030 because they took over the naming rights in 2002.
Enron,
which was the original naming rights.
That one, yeah.
Well, yeah. Go read your history books. They had the naming rights for 30 years, I think, starting in 2000. So I think their naming rights contract was up in 2030, and Minute Maid essentially took that over because they paid the same amount of money that Enron paid, or they took on the same money. So I think it was 2030, so they would have had it for a couple more years. I just think they wanted to bounce early. They have it through 2039, so it's a slightly different contract. It's like a 15-year contract, which I think is more usually in line with how these contracts go. It's not a great name, right?
No.
Like Minute Maid it's Minute Maid, right? So it's orange juice company. It's a citrus company. It's very sunshiny. It's very easy to say. It rolls off the tongue pretty easily. I mean, it's a great, iconic American brand name, Minute Maid. Daikin feels a little bit more calculated, like Daikin Park. We have to go to Daikin Park tonight. It feels a little colder.
Yeah.
And I guess it should be colder. It's an air conditioning company.
You have a really good point there. Like I was saying, like this signage looks cold and just, I don't know. I mean, it'll grow on me, I guess. I think, I remember, so it was Enron, then like before they got the new rights for Minute Maid, it was the ballpark at, the ballpark at something, Union Station.
The ballpark at Union Station, that was the original sort of
just go between where it's like, let's use this as a placeholder, like the Washington football team. And then I do remember when they named it, came up with Minute Maid Park. I was like, that's really corny. I don't like that. It's Minute Maid Park. And now here I am 20 years later, like, it's still Minute Maid Park. It'll always be Minute Maid Park. And
it's still real to me, damn it.
I guess it'll grow on me. I'll hold space for it to grow. But it's right now, I'm just like, I don't like it. I'm going to choose to ignore that. So
look, change is inevitable. Naming rights are naming rights. I don't put a lot of stock into this stuff. I think it's fine. You'll name it whatever you name it as you name it and you go on. People will probably call it Daikin within 3 years. It'll be fine. Yes. Like, would I like to go back to a time when the parks were named after, like, they had like names like Shibe and Yankee, and I mean, they still have Yankee, I guess, but like Ebbets and Polo Grounds is a great name for a ballpark. It's an awesome name.
Yeah.
But a lot of those parks were named after the owner, the rich billionaire, I guess back then, millionaire owner.
And now they're named after corporations. We're doing great.
Yeah, which are also the same as an owner. So like, are we going to get to a future where there's going to be a park named Musk Field? I hope not, but it could happen. So we just have to kind of take what we can get out of these things, I guess.
Try to not put that out there right now.
I'm sorry to do that. I'm sorry. If a team ever comes to Austin, let's say Austin,
man,
the ballpark at Musk Grounds or the ballpark at Musk, I don't know. Let's just get out of here.
Staffed by a grand total of 5 people. Everything else is AI.
God, no! Oh, can we?
Facial recognition. I mean, it's here.
That's a whole new podcast.
That's another separate podcast.
And I didn't mention that because you said that the facial recognition is coming to Milwaukee, so that's in 7 parks now. And the first one, I think Citizens Bank Park in Philly was the first one to actually they were testing it first there. And then Minute Maid actually got it, or Daikin Park got it pretty quickly after that. And I think they started doing it last year. You signed up for it. What did you think of it?
I thought it was a really cool idea. I mean, it still in theory is a cool idea, but in reality, it's kind of weird. I have still continued to use it. I think, I don't know if you can opt out of it, which I would like to do, but it's kind of jarring. You walk up and like, because they scan your face on from your phone. That's how you get into it. And then when you get into the ballpark, or when you get to the ballpark, they take the picture. But then like they have that huge machine, the camera machine. I guess I sound like an old person. But they show your face as they take your picture. So it's like if you're like having a weird day and you look up and you see your face, you're like, it's like that's you, and like everyone behind you can see it. And you're like, cool, this is fun. Yeah. So that was a little jarring. And it's like your face takes up the whole screen too. It's like it's worse than seeing your face on the jumbotron, like unexpectedly. But it's like, oh god, is this what everyone else sees? So yeah, I am a part of that. I don't know if there's a way to opt out, but how it's gonna be, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this could be what we all do in 10 years. We just walk through and our face gets scanned and that's it, right? Like that could be the way it goes. I am fine with pulling up the ballpark app on my phone and having a QR code that they scan at the turnstile. That's not bad at all. It does take like, I always get to the gate and I'm like, crap, I got to call up the ballpark app and get my ticket and but I will say like, Major League Baseball and all of its products, some of them are not great. Some of them are okay. I think the ballpark app is awesome. I buy my ticket wherever I buy my ticket and it just shows up on the ballpark app. And then I can just, I don't even worry about it. When I get to the game, I call it up and there it is. And that's wonderful. I love that. So if we get to facial recognition, fine. That's okay. If we have to do that, but I like the ballpark app. I like what we're doing now. So.
Kind of working for like security. I'm sure like all the ballparks already have facial recognition that we just don't know about in case like, a fan rushes the field and they get banned from the park. That's probably a way to check with that.
Well, yeah. If that guy who basically mauled Mookie Betts in the World Series last year tries to come into Yankee Stadium, they're just going to have his face on file, and it's going to scan through, and there he is. He's here. We got to get him.
Broken that man's hand. I mean, I remember like it's just. It's the Yankees. I mean, sorry, Yankees fans, if you're listening, but don't have the reputation.
There's fans like that everywhere, Alex. Come on, that.
It's so easy to pick on the Yankees. I'm sorry.
We'll get more into that at some future episode, but yes, that was annoying. Okay, what's the next piece of news?
Next, we're going to Chicago. The White Sox announced a ballpark pass for the start of the 2025 season. The Chicago White Sox on Friday announced it was bringing back its ballpark pass for 2025. The White Sox are offering entrance to all March, April, and May home games, 27 in all, for $125. That's not bad at all. The fans will get their ticket 24 hours before the first pitch, and for each game, they will receive a different seating assignment.
Okay, you said it wasn't bad at all. 27 games, $125.
That's not bad. That's insane.
That's not bad. That's what, $4 to $5 a ticket, something like that.
Yeah,
so right under $5 a ticket, basically.
There's got to be a catch somewhere. That sounds like it's got to be a catch somewhere.
Hold on. Let me just throw the context in here.
Okay.
You're talking the Chicago White Sox. You're talking guaranteed rate field. You're talking March, April, May in Chicago. I guarantee you, if I were living in the south side of Chicago and I had access to the White Sox all the time, and I were to tell you I'm going to go to 27 games to start, I'm going to go to the first 27 home games, I guarantee you I could get to those 27 games and spend less money than $125 on tickets.
Really? Okay.
If I'm using StubHub and I'm using other third-party sites and maybe even the White Sox website before the game starts, I could probably get like a $3 ticket here, a $2 ticket there. Maybe I just get one from a friend off the street for free. I guarantee you it's the White Sox who lost how many games last year? 120, whatever it was.
Yeah.
They lost an insane amount of games last year. They don't have a very good team coming into this year. They might be a little bit better, but not good enough to draw a lot of people to the ballpark. They're going to have a lot of empty seats there. March, April, and even May in Chicago, you're talking temperatures at night in the 50s, in the 40s. You're talking rain. You're talking possible snow sometimes in the forecast.
It's so crazy seeing that. It's like, we're
you can go to a ballpark for almost nothing, right? So,
yeah.
what you're basically doing, and this is smart by the White Sox. It's smart by the White Sox because what you're trying to do is like get people into the door and get them at least to pay some kind of money. Like, like if you can get some of these, I think this kind of works for like college students and people who are like relatively young and can get to some games without much hassle, and they have access to the South Side, and maybe they don't have time to think about like, I need to get a ticket to the game today. How do I do that? Like, if you get your ballpark pass, you're just going in automatically. The Oakland Athletics, when they were in Oakland, I should just say the Athletics from now on, when they were in Oakland, before the pandemic, they had the same kind of a deal, a ballpark pass, where you paid, it was like the same price, $125, but it was for the full season. And you basically had access to only one section of not one section, but your seat, your place in the ballpark was a standing room, essentially, with some chairs in the outfield. But you had access to that bar area that's right there in the outfield that was there at the Coliseum. And so the idea of it was, if you lived in the Bay Area and it was mostly for people who were in their 20s and 30s, people who had some discretionary income, they didn't have kids, they could go to the game whenever they wanted to, and they didn't have to think about like getting tickets and all that jazz. They could just go to the ballpark, show their badge, their pass, go in and like get their spot. They can go whenever they wanted to. And so what happens is you'd go to 20, 30 games over the course of the season for $125. It actually kind of was a good deal. This is just the spring. And so you have a 27 game like window. So are you going to go to all 27? Probably not. You're probably going to go to maybe 10 of those games. So now you're spending $12, $13 on a ticket to a game. And the ticket could be up in the upper reaches. It could be down low, but you have to watch the White Sox. So there's a trade-off there. So like, it's a good idea by the White Sox.
Here to watch the White Sox.
Well, that's it, right? You're giving the deal for people so that they can get in the door, and then it's about, well, you got to park, and if you go to White Sox games and you have a car, chances are you have to park in the lots because there's not really much parking around the ballpark in the residential areas. I will give you tips on how to do that. In the future, we'll talk about Chicago, and there are ways to get around that. But if you are driving, chances are you might have to park in the lot, which is probably $15 by itself.
Yeah.
Then you go in, you get food, you get drink, you're spending another $15, $20, $30. So suddenly you're spending $50 at a game that I thought I was going to spend $5 on the ticket here, right? So it adds up pretty quickly. And so it's a smart idea by the White Sox to try to get some definite people in the door. But if I'm a White Sox fan and I got some money to spend next year, it's like, you know what? I'll go to a couple games early, but let me just spend my own money and try to get even cheaper tickets and just like do it on my own time and not have to like give the White Sox. You're also giving to the White Sox, which if you're a White Sox fan who doesn't like the state of the team right now, maybe you don't want to give to the White Sox $125 immediately. So it's
the Dallas Mavericks are going to do something similar.
Yeah. So would you get this? Like if you were a little younger and you were like, I have more like ability to go to games more often, would you get it a $125 ballpark pass if it was for a team in a cold weather stadium situation?
I don't know if I would. You brought up a lot of good points. So I was like, oh, that's not bad. Because it's when you break it down, it's just like, when you look at the whole, the big picture of it, like that's a great deal. But you break it down.
I become Debbie Downer all of a sudden.
You really have. Yeah, man. Okay. But I mean, there are a lot of dumb people like me out there, so maybe that'll work on them now. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not calling anyone dumb. I'm sorry. That was rude.
I will say though that if this package, because the Phillies did a similar thing, and it's only teams that are bad that do this. The Phillies did this similar thing back in like 2017 or 18 when they were not very good. Mm-hmm. You can like go to a game randomly in April and they give you your seating assignment 24 hours ahead of time and it's like third row, right? They usually don't do that. Like they usually don't give you that good of a seat, but it could be a decent comparable seat, like one that's actually like $40, $50, $60 face value. Mm-hmm. That's kind of worth it, but also like chances are that seat was going to be available anyways, and maybe you could have got it for pretty cheap, and you don't have to pay for the whole pass. And so, like, it's all this calculus that goes into it. If you are somebody who you're going to 15 to 20 games in the beginning of the season, and you're like a diehard White Sox fan, but you don't want to spend on season tickets, maybe this is a decent deal. But for the fair weather fan who's maybe going to 2 or 3 games over this first couple month period, I don't know if it's a great deal.
Yeah. You bring up a lot of good points, Mr. Downer. That's all good.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the news for this week, and we'll be back in just a few seconds. We will get into our rough guide for the Grapefruit League in Florida, West Coast, East Coast, everything, not everything in between, because we're not going to hit on everything in between. I'm not giving you a Disney World guide. That's not what we're doing here.
Again, it's another podcast.
An entirely different podcast. There's a cottage industry of podcasts that are built on Disney, so we don't have to do that.
Yes.
Are you a Disney person?
I appreciate some of the stuff they put out,
but you're not like a Disney adult.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
A lot of them pop up across my Instagram and Facebook thing, and I look at that stuff like, here's best places you can eat and stuff, and like you're spending $10,000 in one day, and like this not blinking an eye, and I'm like, oh my god, like what do you do for a living? Because this is insane. Good for them. They find something they love to do and travel, and I get the traveling part, but we would go to Disney World growing up. We would drive, hop on I-10, hop off I-10 in Orlando.
There you go. Yeah, I and everybody has their passions. If you're a Disney adult, that's fine.
Yeah.
Went to Disney a couple times when I was a kid. We would take our vacation. Like that was our big vacation. If we ever went to Disney, that was like the big vacation.
That was ours too. Yeah.
And so I have a soft spot for Disney World, even though it's extremely expensive. And I've tried to get my wife to say, we should take the girls once because they would probably really love it. And she's like, no, it costs way too much money. They can watch Frozen and then go to the Frozen show when it comes to Houston. That's enough for them. And it kind of is enough for them, but like, I get it. I also get like wanting to go to Disney once just to like show the girls, look at this incredible like conglomeration of amusement parks. It's kind of fun. So I just like eating around Epcot. That's my thing. I like eating around Epcot.
I would love to do that. I don't think I ever did that when I was a kid because I was like 6 and 7 when I went.
I was making itineraries for the family. Like Tuesday, we're eating at the Crown and Thorn Pub in the England area, and we're gonna have bangers and mash and fish and chips and all that jazz.
That's amazing.
I was doing. Can you imagine? I was like 8 doing this. Like, do you know? Like, how did I become what I became? A travel writer who tells people where to go.
It all makes sense now. It's great.
There it is. All right. Well, we'll be back in a second. We'll go over the Grapefruit League. We'll do more of this travel stuff in just a few seconds. Hang tight. All right. Welcome back to Take Me Out, the ultimate podcast about ballparks and the baseball experience. It is now time, Alex, for us to get into our first ever rough guide. It is February. It is pitchers and catchers time, and that means spring training is in front of us. People will start to be going to Arizona for the Cactus League and to Florida for the Grapefruit League over the next month and a half to see their favorite teams play and practice and have a great time in the sunshine. And so it is time to tell people what the deal is with Grapefruit League baseball and what do you do when it is time to get down there, how to eat, drink, have fun, stay, all the fun things that go with the baseball.
Yeah, what is the deal with that? I mean, which is kind of a good segue considering where the Yankees are in this conversation. And what's the deal with Florida? Was that a bit of a reach? I'm sorry.
No, that's not bad. I like that.
No,
we can keep that in there. We can keep it going. That's for sure.
That's cool. Yeah. So what is the deal with Florida? Like, can you explain? Like, start with the broad things to know about visiting Florida for spring training. Like, what would I want to know?
So this is the sort of 101 here, right off the top. Some of the things that you should know just going in case you don't know much about Grapefruit League baseball in Florida. Starting in February, teams come to Florida for spring training. And then, of course, the games start usually third week of February or so, really in earnest. There's a couple exhibitions, like real exhibitions against like college teams sometimes. And then they actually start playing the schedule. And that goes through the end of March, essentially. Season starting more early every year, it seems like. But end of March is when it ends. So there's like 6 weeks for spring training, essentially, and the meat of it, when everybody usually tends to go, is sometime around the middle of March, which is when spring break happens across the country. And by the end of March, you'll see more people at the ball games too, and then it ends, of course, at the end of March. There are 2 coasts in Florida, if you may not know. One touches the Gulf of Mexico. The other touches the Atlantic Ocean. And half of the teams, almost, are on the west side at the Gulf. Half of the teams basically are on the east side touching the Atlantic. So you have 2 coasts. Usually you'll go into one of the coasts, right? If you're going to spring training, you're probably going to either stay in the Tampa-St. Pete area, the west area, or you're going to go to the east and see your team out there, which is West Palm Beach and Jupiter, that area. The primary landing spots are St. Pete, Tampa. There's a lot of teams in that general vicinity. There's a lot of teams down a little bit more south in the Fort Myers, Port Charlotte area. And then there are teams out in the east in the Palm Beach area, Jupiter, as I said, Port St. Lucie where the Mets are. They're in generally the same vicinity, which is north of Miami there. More casual, obviously. If you've never been to spring training, it's very casual. The prices for games are a little cheaper. It's not as security is still security, but it's a little bit more lax, it feels like, just as far as the vibe. It's casual. There's plenty of good vibes going around. We're in the sunshine. You're not going to see your favorite players the whole game. They'll probably play a couple innings and then get out of the game, depending on when you're there. If you're going early in the spring, you typically don't see a lot of the big names. If you go later in the spring, you might see them more often. There's split squad games. When your team has a split squad game, that means they're playing 2 games in one day, and half the team is going to be at the home park typically. Half the team's going to be somewhere else, usually farther away, because they put a lot of players on the bus and have them go to another part of the state. So you have a choice of seeing the team in one park or the other park. You should build in rest time when you're at spring training in Florida. It is hot. It'll make you tired. When you're in the sunshine for a couple hours, you will get tired. So have time to rest. Have time to relax at your hotel. Have time to go to the beach. There are beaches in Florida. They're wonderful. It's usually around 70, 80 degrees in March. So go have some fun at the beach. Build in time to eat. Have leisurely dinners and lunches. Spend an hour, 2 hours eating lunch and dinner. Don't just grab and go all the time. Maybe go see a museum. Go see something different while you're there. You're on vacation. Have fun. When the schedule is released, how much time do you have, and when you need to book flights and all that stuff? Well, the good thing is you don't have to just book flights in January. You can still book now. I was looking at some of the flights that are available from different parts of the country, and you can still get flights for the high peak period during spring break, 14th to 18th of March, which is that weekend. You can still get flights for under $200 from out of New York, Philadelphia, Detroit, Toronto to the West Coast. You can even find flights to the eastern part of the state for under $200, but they are much higher, usually on the East Coast. The airports are smaller. It's just more expensive, especially if you're coming from St. Louis or Houston to go to the East Coast, which is where those teams are. You might have to spend more money. Driving is an option. Alex, I know you've told me offline that your family would drive out to Florida from Houston. That is potentially an option. So you could try that.
Hop on I-10 in Houston, hop off in Orlando, wherever you want to end up there. It's easy peasy right there.
It's a fun drive. It's 18 hours, but you could do it. It's not bad.
Yeah.
You can also fly out of Atlanta, or you can fly to Orlando. Orlando's not a bad option. It's a big airport. You do have to drive from Orlando to where you have to go after that. But if you want to batch your trip with a Walt Disney World experience or something like that, that's not a bad option. You could do Disney World for half the trip and then do spring training for the other half. Also, prioritize the games in accordance with your rest periods. Like I said, rest is essential. Yes. So don't think that if you're going to be there for 4 days, you get to go to 4 games. Try to be realistic about it. If you're going for 4 days, try to go to 2 games, maybe 3. If you're going for 6 days, try to go to 3 games, maybe 4. Don't try to go to a game every day. If you are one of these people who wants to try to hit all the ballparks really quickly, go for it. But again, be ready to rest. Be ready to relax. Don't try to be a hero. Yourself. Yeah, take care of yourself.
Burnout is super easy to get, especially the older you get, and it's just you gotta. You might be so excited to do it, and then after 2 games, you're I'm exhausted. It's because you go to the game and you're exhausted, you're not gonna have a good time.
Yeah, and hydrating is really important.
Oh my God, yeah.
Please, hydrate when you're in Florida. Yeah. It's easy to just go when you're out, and it's easy to go and then get to the brewery and have a beer and all that stuff. Make sure you have plenty of water when you're out there. It's a huge key. When I was last time I went to spring training, which was last year, I was in Clearwater for a Phillies game. It was really hot and sunny, and I wanted more water. I just needed more water. My kids needed more water. It was very important to have water. So that's a big
beer
thing.
Goes down so easily. So it's tricky. Yeah. It's tricky. Now, I know with major league teams, with ballparks, you're allowed to bring in an unopened bottle of water. Is that the same with spring training facilities?
So spring training facilities are typically the same as the regular facilities in the majors. Cool. You have to kind of bring in that closed bottle of water in a clear plastic bottle. They've gotten a little bit more strict with those things. I do think some of the parks are a little bit more lenient as far as food is concerned. Like you could usually bring in food to a lot of these parks, but these parks want to make money. These teams want to make money. So most of the time, they're going to restrict what you can bring in. So just kind of use caution. Look up your team's FAQ on their spring training ballpark before you go. If you really want to know, like, call in advance maybe and just find out. Every team's different. Every situation's different. As far as the tickets are concerned, they are typically cheaper for spring training, but some of the ballparks are more expensive. So for instance, I'll tell you this. If you're going to the West Coast, if you want to do the Tampa St. Pete thing, Phillies games are expensive and they sell out very quickly. The Phillies are probably the most devoted fan base as far as spring training is concerned. They do a really good job of it there. Yankees games are also pretty expensive. Yankees fans will fill out that ballpark. I looked for Phillies and Yankees tickets, and Phillies tickets were not available for the St. Patrick's Day game. If you wanted to go to a Phillies game for like the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day or something like that, I think it was sold out, but typically tickets for that stadium are like $30, $40 for a good seat there. So it's going to be more expensive.
What's the range of capacity for these ballparks?
Yeah, a couple thousand. You're talking like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, I think, in most cases.
That's still really impressive for spring training.
It varies per ballpark, but yeah, a lot of them are kind of in that like middle range of a couple thousand. Yankees ballpark, Steinbrenner Field, which is where the Rays are going to be playing their home games this year in regular season. The cheapest I could find for a March 16th game between the Yankees and the Pirates, $70. That's not
regular season.
That's not cheap. Yeah, it's regular seasons.
Yeah.
So again, if you're wanting to go to a Yankees game at Steinbrenner Field, if you want to go to a Phillies game at Baycare Ballpark, you're going to pay more money. So just remember that. But if you're going to the Orioles at Ed Smith in Sarasota, if you're going to Bradenton to see the Pirates, if you're going across the state to see the Astros or the Cardinals or the Nationals, you're going to spend less money. It's going to be $10, $20, $30 for a ticket. You can get a burn seat. Burn is the lawn in the outfield where it's usually cheap seats. You have to bring your own like towel, or even some places allow you to bring a chair, some sort of like a beach chair, and you could spend like $15 to $25 on a seat for the berm, right? But a lot of parks are cheaper, but the Phillies and the Yankees specifically, you're going to spend more money typically for those tickets. Food is over $10 at all these parks. Drinks are over $15 at these parks. When I was at Baycare for a Phillies game, I had to spend, I think, like $18 for a beer. It's the same as the Major League parks. Yeah. They like once you're in, they get you. Like that's how it is. Yeah. Parking is $15 to $25 at a lot of these ballparks. My suggestion is to get rideshare. For a lot of these places, you can get a rideshare to the ballpark and try to spend, $15, $25 on a ticket. And if you need to get food and drink, get food and drink. But maybe you can wait till after the game. There's a lot of good restaurants and bars and stuff around these places. So you can find ways to save some money. But parking is also an expense. And if you're going to drink and like do a lot, take a rideshare. But again, they're getting more expensive. These places are getting more expensive. That's just the way it goes.
Very true. Very true.
Should we go to the West Coast?
Let's start with the West Side. That's awful. I'm never going to say that again. I'm sorry.
You've been to Tampa St. Pete before, correct?
I have been to Tampa St. Pete. Yes, I have been, and I actually had a really, really, really good time. And that was when I went to check off Tropicana Field off my list. And one of the coolest things that my friend and I didn't discover until we got there, at the St. Petersburg Museum of History, there's a place called the Schrader's Little Cooperstown, and it is the Guinness World Records spot of the most signed baseballs in the world. And
wow.
It's so cool. Like they have over 5,000 signed balls signed by anywhere from old players to celebrities, talk show hosts, politicians. It's insane. Like the rooms just keep going, and it's definitely worth the price of admission. I don't think it was as expensive to get in. I don't remember how much it was, but the location is really cool because it's literally on a pier, and you're walking distance from. I'm a big art connoisseur, so the Salvador Dali Museum is. Yeah. I don't know. I think that's gotta be not even a mile walking distance. As I remember, my friend and I walked. No, we went to one of those scooters, those little electric scooters, and I almost broke my ankle, but that's another story.
Oh God.
But yeah, just take a scooter over there. Yeah, like these St. Pete and Tampa have those electric scooters you can rent. So those are really cool to rent as well. They're not too expensive, and if you're just going a short distance, that's a great idea to use them. But the Salvador Dali Museum was the cannot missing, as long with same with the Little Coop. I cannot talk. Sorry. Same with the Little Cooperstown, and there's also, if you're familiar with his work, Dale Chihuly has a museum, kind of more in like the town area of St. Pete, but that's a really cool exhibit if you want to see some of his sculptures as well. But Little Cooperstown is a cannot miss. It's
okay. Really, there you go.
Really cool place
For baseball fans, especially Little Cooperstown in St. Pete. St. Pete is a great little city. I was surprised pleasantly by that Central Avenue area there at St. Pete, and there's a lot of activity there. It's fun at nighttime. The weather's obviously pretty good there. So we're going to do this pretty quickly. I'm going to recommend like a hotel, place to stay. I'm going to recommend a couple restaurants, places to eat that are more sort of budget-friendly, pizza, burgers, stuff like that. I'm going to recommend some places to drink, breweries, things like that. But we're going to do it really quick. We'll start with what is in Tampa St. Pete as far as baseball. So here are the teams that play in this general area of Tampa St. Pete. You have the Yankees are in Tampa at Steinbrenner Field. The Phillies are in Clearwater at Baycare Ballpark.
Following with my hat, my finger.
As you're doing the hat. The Blue Jays are in Dunedin at TD Ballpark, and Dunedin is just a few minutes north, I believe, of Clearwater. It's like right next to Clearwater. Nearby from Tampa St. Pete and to the south are the Pirates in Bradenton at Lecom Park, Lecom. We have the Orioles in Sarasota, which is also south of St. Pete, at Ed Smith Stadium. And then you have the Tigers over east of Tampa St. Pete at Publix Field at Joker Marchant Stadium in Lakeland, Florida. So I have been to a couple of these parks, most of them, in fact. The only one actually I haven't been to is Bradenton at Lecom Park. But I've been to all the other parks, and I like them all for different reasons. And it's been a while since I've been in a couple of them. I really enjoy Ed Smith Park in Sarasota. It's a fun, like throwbacky kind of looking ballpark that they've done a nice job kind of keeping renovated and keeping fun. It's more laid back than a lot of, put it this way. Baycare Ballpark, where the Phillies are, is a crazy house. Is spring training as if it was a tailgate party. Like Phillies fans,
it's just Philly South.
It's Philly South, and Phillies fans are notorious for just being crazy people. And it is like that. It's more expensive. It's more like packed. It's more of a vibe for sure. Ed Smith, by comparison, is a lot more laid back and easier to digest and a lot of fun to go to and like walk around in. Steinbrenner, it's been a bit for me to go to, but I remember being there and having space to roam around, but there's a lot of Yankee fans, and they could be a little, it's chaotic, but not as chaotic as Baycare is. Dunedin, the Blue Jays, much more laid back, very fun, very like old school ballpark that they've renovated a little bit, looks pretty decent now. And then Lakeland, Joker Marchant, it's been a while, but from what I remember, it's kind of comparable to Ed Smith, older ballpark. Laid back, fun. Tigers fans don't travel as much as Yankees and Phillies fans do, but it's still very fun. So, that out of the way, where to stay? First off, I've stayed mostly at friends' houses in Tampa St. Pete because I have friends in Tampa St. Pete. But doing the research, I found a really cool place in St. Pete called Mint House. They have several different locations of this boutique hotel in cities around the country, but it is boutique. It is about $200 a night. You're not going to find things that are a lot cheaper in St. Pete, especially unless you're looking at your Best Westerns and your Super 8s and things like that. But it seems pretty clean. It's a new building. They have kitchenettes. They have balconies for the rooms and a nice pool. It looks really cool. I would recommend that because also you're right there on Central Avenue. You're like 2 blocks away. And Central Avenue is a lot of fun. There's a couple really great restaurants and bars and breweries in that area. Have you ever been to Green Bench Brewing in St. Pete?
No.
So Green Bench Brewing in St. Pete is maybe the best brewery in Florida, bar none.
Really?
Great brewery. Yes. Awesome brewery. Great beers. Great vibe. Kind of baseball-y vibe. It's a couple blocks away from Tropicana Field. Really fun brewery. If you're into beer, it's a great place. Also on
better than Cigar City?
Cigar City's awesome, and that's in Tampa. You should totally go to it. I would recommend if you're flying out of Tampa International, Cigar City is not too far away from there. So that's like a good place to go after landing or before going home, okay? So Cigar City's really awesome. Big place, iconic beers, all that stuff. High Lie, and then they have really good darker beer selection. That's a lot of fun. So go check that out if you are a beer person. But Green Bench is like the place to go to in Tampa St. Pete, in my opinion. If you want food, Central Avenue, there's a place called La Segunda, Central Bakery. That's in Ybor City. They also, I think, have a Central Ave location. No, let me backtrack. Let me start that over. Central Avenue for food. There's a place on Central Avenue called Bodega on Central Avenue. They've been around for several years now, and it's a really cool, modernish kind of spot. They have Cubano sandwiches. Now, the Cubano sandwich originated in the Tampa St. Pete area, from what my history tells me. There are really good Cubanos throughout Florida. Miami has a lot of good ones too, but Tampa St. Pete has the originals. The Bodega there, Bodega on Central, has really good ones. They don't use salami in theirs. A Cubano typically has roast pork, salami, and I think a third meat. I forget what it is, but it's a good Cubano. They also have beer and wine, really good sandwiches and other things. But Bodega is really good. The other really good Cubano spot, the original Cubano spot, is in Ybor City in Tampa. It's called La Segunda Central Bakery. They have a couple locations, but the one in Ybor City is the original since 1915. They make their own bread. Terrific stuff. You should go there as your bucket list place if you're going to get food in Tampa St. Pete and you need to check off the thing to get. Also, Tampa St. Pete has a lot of good pizza. Have you ever had good pizza in Tampa St. Pete?
Not like I haven't tried, but man, you're making me hungry right now.
So the thing about Tampa St. Pete that's really great is you have a lot of northeastern expats who come down from New York, from Philly, from the Pizza Belt, which is the area between essentially Boston and Baltimore. So they've all made their bread in Tampa St. Pete, and they, start pizza restaurants. And so there's really good pizzerias throughout the area. A lot of them are really good. You could just look at a list. I'll give you a couple that I really like. Toby's Original Little Italy in St. Pete has been around for 50 years. They do old school sort of New York style. Garlic knots are really worth it. People rave about the garlic knots. Nona's in Tampa. I was there last time I went to Tampa St. Pete. Best Neapolitan pizza I have had maybe ever in my life. Really good pizza. Something. Nona's in Tampa. Go check it out.
Okay.
And I'm going to give a shout out to a third place that's relatively new that has been kind of hot as far as social media especially. The Violet Stone in St. Petersburg. The reason I'm shouting this out, though, full disclosure, my cousin owns the pizzeria. So my cousin is Danny Feckety, and he owns the Violet Stone. I mean, I literally babysat him when he was little. He's an awesome dude. Got a young family, great guy. And he makes awesome pizza and cheesesteaks. If he's a Philly guy, his cheesesteaks are really, really, really good. High ratings on Barstool Sports and stuff like that. So It's not just me saying this. It has gotten a lot of good press. Go check out the Violet Stone in St. Petersburg. They make great cheesesteaks and great Philly-style pizza, which has a charred bottom. It's a little bit charred, a little darker than you would expect, but it's really delicious. So
it's
that's
not Nepo pizza. It's legit pizza.
It's legit. It's legit. Yeah. It's coming from here. I know my pizza. I'm from the Bible Belt. I know my pizza.
Yeah. Cool. Oh my God.
So Cubano's Pizza, West Coast. Where to drink? We talked about Green Bench. There's a lot of good breweries in Dunedin. Seventh Son, Woodwright Brewing Company. Really cool place to sit out and have a beer. Great patio area. They make their own tables and chairs. Woodwright. They are wood makers. They're woodworkers. Dunedin Brewery, kind of the old school one. You look for all the Billy Mays paraphernalia, Dunedin Brewery, because Billy Mays was from that area. Rest in peace, Billy Mays. Mm-hmm. For those who don't remember the pitchman, Billy Mays, Billy Mays here with super, very crazy, infomercials. But those three, especially Seventh Son, Woodwright, and Dunedin, I recommend for Dunedin breweries because it's really good beer culture there. What else to see in that area? Clearwater is a great place to hang out. Clearwater Beach is awesome. White sand beaches, really beautiful. It gets packed, especially around spring break. So if you're going at spring break, Clearwater Beach is going to be crazy. Maybe you steer away from there, but it's really worth it. If you're going during a weekday or something like that, and maybe you're going earlier in March, which I recommend the sort of first, second week of March, if you can go, Clearwater Beach is an awesome place to go for a day and have a beach day. I also recommend the Dolly Museum in St. Pete. That's an amazing place. Beautiful building, a glass bubble called Enigma that kind of brings you in there. A lot of surrealism art there. Really cool place. And as you mentioned, Schrader's Little Cooperstown is the place to go for baseball fans. So anything to add to Tampa St. Pete before we move on?
Nah, man, I think we nailed it. But I want to go back to Little Cooperstown. The place was just so cool. This is not an ad, I promise. It was just.
They're not paying. They're not paying
yet, but but yeah, that place is really cool because you could spend a couple of hours here and still not see all the balls. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Let's move to Fort Myers and Port Charlotte area, a little south of Tampa St. Pete. So you can stay in this area if you want to see the teams that are down here. We have the Red Sox and the Twins are both in Fort Myers. The Red Sox are at JetBlue Park, which is an awesome park that I have not been to yet. It is a smaller size replica of Fenway Park, essentially. Really cool.
Right.
Diamond Stadium at Lee Health Sports Complex is where the Twins are. They're both in Fort Myers. The Rays are at Charlotte Sports Park in Port Charlotte. The Braves are at Cool Today Park in Northport or Venice. It's Venice. They call it Venice, but it's really they're in Northport. They used to be in Orlando at the Walt Disney Complex, but they moved there a couple of years ago to Cool Today Park. They're on the west side, so now all those teams are batched there. Where to stay? There's a place that I found. So this is a little harder. So this Fort Myers, Port Charlotte area has a lot of chain hotels. So you're looking at your Best Westerns, your Super 8s, your stuff like that. You have your Hilton, you have your Hyatt, you have your Hampton Inn, all that stuff. So you can find, that's probably your best bet, sort of that mid-tier hotel option. But there is a cool B&B that I saw that if you're not afraid of sort of like older looking B&Bs that have sort of a pastel-y Golden Girls aesthetic, I mean it. This is kind of a cool option. I love Golden Girls, by the way, so I'll talk about it again. Hibiscus House. It's a B&B that is in Fort Myers. A little bit older feel, like I said, but comfortable, cheap, and about $150 per night average. It'll go up around the weekends, and especially during spring break, but you could find a room for about $150. Pastel-y colors, a lot of white, a lot of brightness, but I always like a B&B as like a place to like touch down. It's like easy. It's good for resting. They handle your food a lot of times. You can get dinner there. You can get like some breakfast there to go. Always a good option to get a B&B because you know you're getting some real personal service as well. Where to eat? So Fort Myers, there's a really cool place to get seafood called Izzy's Fish and Oyster. They have New England style raw bar stuff, oysters, lobster rolls, fried fish, seafood towers. Yeah, get a seafood tower. It's not that expensive. It's great. not as hoity-toity as you would expect from a New England seafood place. It's open. It's very comfortable. It's very relaxing. So that's my pick for seafood, Izzy's Fish and Oyster. Also in Fort Myers, there's the Lodge, which has barbecue and beer, a big bar, and sports on TV. So if your vibe is like, I just want to like hang out, have a couple beers, and have some decent food, the Lodge is a really good pick. I also recommend Wally's Southern Style Barbecue in Port Charlotte. They do pulled pork, brisket. They have sandwiches. Very laid-back barbecue place. Not necessarily Texas style, not necessarily your North Carolina style, but it's a lot of pork. So it is kind of more like that, but it's very relaxed, very easy, very good. Where to drink? Fort Myers Brewing Company is probably the best bet there. Indoor-outdoor space, a variety of beers on tap, easy pick. Not a lot of breweries in that vicinity, so Fort Myers Brewing is probably your best bet. You're not too far from Tampa St. Pete. It's a bit of a drive, but if you wanted to go up there for a couple of days, you have your pick of the places up there. But if you're going to stay in the Fort Myers, Port Charlotte area, that's probably your best bet. There's also a place called Peace River Beer Company in Port Charlotte. Don't be fooled by the name. They don't have their own beer there. They're not a brewery. They have beer from other places, but they have a lot of Florida beers, a lot of good craft beers, always changing. So really good beer selection. So I recommend that. And their food is Thai. They do Thai food and beer, which is always a really good combination. I love having some curry with like an IPA. Really good combination. So Peace River Beer Company, if you're looking for laid back, good food, a little different, and a lot of good craft beer. What else to see in the Fort Myers, Port Charlotte area? There's a lot of like adventure stuff, like dolphin adventures and manatee adventures. Nothing that you can actually swim with, said dolphins or manatees, but there are cruises. Go to Manatee Park. There's kayak rentals there. That's on Orange River in Fort Myers. Again, it's called Manatee Park. They will have kayak rentals for like $35 for up to 3 hours, which is a really good deal.
That is
Get out there on the river. You can go see manatees. The thing about manatees are they only come out when it's colder in the water. So if you get there late February, early March, it is possible that the manatees will be out there. But if the water's like in the 60s or above, they're probably not going to be there. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for manatees, the water has to be colder. Also, Sanibel Island is not too far away from Fort Myers. It's about 20 miles southwest via a causeway. You could drive right into Sanibel. Sanibel Island is a cool little island community where people from the area go for beaches and to hang out and to just have a little bit of a vacation kind of a thing. There's a really cool, and I forget the name of it, but I think it's a seafood restaurant or an Italian restaurant that's on the island there. It's like Grandma's or Aunt Dot's or Grandma Dot's. I think it's a seafood place. It's very laid back. It has like fried seafood and stuff like that. That's your pick of where to eat there in Sanibel Island. But that's a cool place to go for a day trip if you just want to get away from baseball for a little bit. Anything about the Port Charlotte, Fort Myers area? Any questions that you have, Alex?
No, that sounds so much fun. Like I love manatees. I think they're so cool. I think it's what old sailors used to think they were mermaids back then. That's what they thought mermaids were. Manatees.
Yeah. And they tried to fall in love with them, probably.
We'll see a nice little sea shanty for everybody right there. But man, this all sounds so good. Like seafood sounds so. First, I was craving a cubano, then I was craving a pizza. Now I'm like a fried oyster po' boy. Sounds so good right now.
Oh my goodness! There you go. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, lunchtime. There you go.
Lunchtime right now. We're recording too, so it's like
there you go. There you go. And Fort Myers and Port Charlotte is really good for like a 3-4 day thing. Like, hey, I'm a Braves fan. I'm going to see the Braves for a game. Maybe the next day I'm going to go see the Red Sox and check out JetBlue Park and see how cool that is. That's a really easy thing to do. It's a cool 3-4 days because you could do those two things and then even have a day to go to Sanibel or maybe just like have a day to like hang out in Fort Myers and like do some food stuff, do some walking around, kind of relax. Like that's a really nice way to kind of spend your spring training without the hustle and the bustle too of the Tampa St. Pete area. If you're not a big city person and don't want to spend a lot of time in traffic and stuff like that, Fort Myers and Port Charlotte is a really good option for those going for Grapefruit League baseball. East Coast, ready for the East Coast?
Let's do East Coast. So you're part of the country.
Well, yeah, my old part of the country, but you're part of spring training because this is where the Astros are on these. Now, you've been in this part of Florida before for baseball, correct?
I have. Oh man, yeah. I don't have many memories of it, but yeah, we would hop on I-10, and my dad actually has a connection to the Bush family, so we would definitely go for Rangers spring training there, check them out there. And I have a signed George W. Bush baseball somewhere. I used to own one. I don't know where it is now, but yeah, that was some interesting times back then.
Yeah, that's another podcast altogether. I mean, once you say my dad has connections to the Bush family, that's a sidebar Patreon podcast.
That's a lot of people with more details on that. It's not that deep, I promise. This is friends. It's all good.
Okay, so in the East Coast, you have the Astros and the Nationals share a ballpark. So this is something that happens a lot in Arizona. It happens here in Florida, just in this part of the state. You have teams that are in the same complex, two teams in the same ballpark, and they have games in the same ballpark. This happens. So the Astros and the Nationals share Cacti Ballpark of the Palm Beaches in West Palm Beach. The Cardinals and the Marlins share Roger Dean Chevrolet Stadium in Jupiter, which has been around forever, that park, that name. Then you have the Mets by themselves at Clover Park in Port St. Lucie. So West Palm Beach, you have Jupiter, which is a little bit north of there. And then you have Port St. Lucie, which is a little bit more inland of those areas. No, I think it's more north. Excuse me. It's north of, I want to say it's in between West Palm Beach and Jupiter. I need to double check that. But they're all in that vicinity. Again, the Astros and Nationals share a ballpark in West Palm Beach, and the Cardinals and the Marlins share a park in Jupiter.
The Astros and Nationals, it must have been nice. Not awkward, nothing, no hard feelings after the Nationals. What year was that when the Nationals beat the Astros?
2019?
Yeah, just no hard feelings.
No hard feelings.
What's up? We just beat you.
Yeah. It happens. Sometimes your team loses, Alex. It happens. Oh. So where to stay in this area? This is a little bit harder because the East Coast of Florida, it's beaches. It's a lot of people going for beach vacations, a lot of retirees. It's a little bit of an older community, most of these places. So a lot of the vacation stays here are vacation homes. There's some Airbnb action, and then there's very, very expensive places to stay, hotels on the beach. I'm talking like a Four Seasons, basically, like very expensive hotels. So you're talking like places that are $700, $800 a night. I'm serious.
Oof,
Palm Beach Historic Inn, which is on Palm Beach. So you have West Palm Beach, and then there's a bridge that goes over into actual Palm Beach, which is basically on an island there. That hotel, Palm Beach Historic Inn, which is my pick if you actually want to spend a lot of money on a hotel. Spanish colonial hotel, really cool place, very nicely done, designed well, good clean rooms. You're talking $700 a night for like an average on the low end. So keep that in mind. The chain hotels are like $300 a night. The Best Western in the area is around $200 a night for March during spring training. So you're going to spend more money. Just keep that in mind if you're going to go see some of these teams. You could always stay somewhere else, like in Orlando or even Miami, and drive up or something like that. But no, you are going to have to drive. It's going to be an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. These are expensive stays.
And that money that you save on not staying at those hotels, you're probably going to have to spend on renting a car.
That is true. So stuff to balance when you're doing these trips. Where to eat? Tropical Smokehouse is in Fort Myers. Really cool place. Barbecue, pork, brisket. They do smoked fish. They do some different things here. Southern Bites, like fried mac. One of the better barbecue spots in Florida. Tropical Smokehouse in Fort Myers. Little Mars Food in Jupiter. People love this place. Healthy-ish fare plus good fresh seafood. Very busy, very buzzy. Locals love it. I recommend it completely. Where to drink? The best places that I found, Civil Society in Jupiter. And I think there's one in West Palm as well. The Jupiter one is, I think, the OG. It is beautiful. Civil Society is a really good brewery. They have really good beer, but beautiful place in Jupiter. Like, their bar is like unlike most bars that you'll find at a brewery. It is mid-century. It is beautiful, like mid-century chairs, like Eames chairs almost, essentially, like that kind of design, not necessarily the shape of them, but like really beautiful chairs. A cool bar. They have food, pizza at the Jupiter Brewery, IPA heavy tap list, very good beer. Civil Society ranks very high. I recommend them entirely. Tiki Beach is in Jupiter. It's a big format tiki bar with seafood and tacos. It's spacious, it's outdoors, and it's kid friendly, very family friendly. So Tiki is a good place if you're going with kids and you want to spend a couple hours just like chilling out, playing some games at a table, having a couple drinks. That's a good place to go to. What else to see? The Norton Museum of Art in West Palm is really fun. It has over 8,000 pieces of European and Chinese art, kind of your typical art museum. It's the biggest museum in Florida, and it has a great contemporary art section. Really great contemporary art. I highly recommend the Norton Museum of Art if you want to go somewhere indoors for a couple hours in the area. That's in West Palm. Anything else about that area that I failed to mention?
Not that I can think of. Again, it's been so long since I've been down there. I mean, I've been due for a trip back down there for quite a number of years. I'm hoping in the next year or two I can get it. I know every year I have a conversation with my friend Nathan, and we just kind of, is this going to be the year we do it? And like just we kind of get starting, and then it just falls off because life happens, and work happens. But I think starting this podcast is starting to fuel that hunger a little bit more to really get back out there.
And there's still time. If you wanted to book your trip, you could still do it now. You could still do it even in early March. Like, there's nothing that says you can't. You may have to pay a little bit more money the closer that you get to the day that you actually want to go. So, if you want to fly to Florida now, or like, let's say you want to go third week of March, get your plane tickets as soon as possible. If you're trying to fly in the first week of March, get them as soon as possible. But you might even spend a little bit less because the first week of March isn't as busy. But you can still make that trip happen. You can still do it you could do it for a weekend. If you had a couple days where you're off and you want to go do it, you could do it. I'm telling you. I'm telling you personally.
I have friends who live in Miami, and they're from Houston. I went to middle school with him, and his brewery, unfortunately, in Miami just closed. But he's a huge Astros fan, so he's come into town, and we've hung out a couple times since his brewery and everything. So yeah, I'm okay. All right, it's kind of a couple of things I need to figure out, but. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay. Well, that is our rough guide to the Grapefruit League, to Florida, the West and the East Coast. It's not a full guide. It's not a complete guide, but if you wanted to get more, there's always my book, Baseball Road Trips.
You mean this one right here?
That one right there.
This
Came
one
out
right
September
here?
of last year. It is still very vital, there's a lot of stuff in there that is still very fresh. So go check that out if you want more tips and stuff on Florida and spring training and the Grapefruit League and all that good stuff. We'll be back in a second. Stay tuned.
Hey, if you want to find us other than in your ears, you can find us on youtube.com/takemeoutpod. You can also find us on facebook.com/takemeoutpod. And you can find us on Instagram at Instagram, or I guess you could say our handle is, say it with me, Take Me Out Pod. Find us here when we got our new episodes that drop on Wednesdays.
And we have a Patreon in the works. It will be launching soon. And when that does launch, we will be giving you exclusive content only for those who pay the extra money. Help us out. Help you. So get ready for more information on our Patreon when that comes for Take Me Out. Okay, I'll stop.
Was that it? I was like, oh, sorry.
Okay, welcome back to Take Me Out, the ultimate podcast about ballparks and the baseball experience. Final segment. What do we got, Alex?
The Washington, D.C. Council has approved to transfer control of old RFK Stadium to the city. With that move, the city has started the demolition process of the stadium.
So, the Nationals played in RFK Stadium early in their life. I do remember watching Phillies games against the Nationals when they were playing in RFK, and it was very weird. The Senators also played in RFK Stadium, I believe, back in the day. RFK was, of course, where the Washington now Commanders played back in the day. Not a very good stadium. Nope, not at all. With that said, I don't think I ever went to RFK. In fact, I remember partying in the parking lot of RFK, so I've never been there. But from what I've heard, not the best stadium, right? Not the best. What is the worst stadium that you've ever been to for a baseball game?
So I know the easy answer is Oakland. That is the absolute easy answer.
That would be an easy answer, yes.
But that's like almost like a cop-out in a way. So I'm going to go in a different angle. And we've actually had this discussion before. This is where you and I kind of differ. But I did not really care for like the newer parks, the ones that are massive. So I did not care for the new Rangers ballpark.
Okay.
Or Miami. And
okay.
Again, nothing against those teams. It's just those ballparks are so huge when you have that many restaurants and that many shops and that many things to do in a place where you're supposed to, the primary goal is to watch baseball. I get what you're trying to do. Personally, for me, it feels like they built a shopping mall or a convention center and just put a baseball field in the middle of it. It's just, it feels like baseball's not the goal there. And I prefer the old school style. Camden Yards is like one of the jewels of the ballpark. It's so cool because it's a baseball centered field, and it's a baseball centered building and experience. While Rangers in Miami and these newer ballparks where they're just like, ooh, something over here, ooh, something over here. It's like, but what about the reason why you're there is for baseball? And I understand that's really cool for families. They love that. And people are just getting into baseball. They're not really into it. You're on a date with somebody or a group of friends, someone who just tagged along and they want to try something else. But when I go to a ballpark, I want to feel like I'm actually at a ballpark and I'm just going to sit down. I'm really going to focus on the game. And that's different per person. And now you and I have had this discussion before, but I prefer the feel of an old school baseball stadium. So yeah.
Yeah, Globe Life, I will give opinions on later on when we actually talk about it. It's not at the top of my list, that's for sure. I am higher on Lone Depot in Miami than you are, and most probably are. I do like a lot of things about that park. It's underrated in my opinion, but I can also see why people wouldn't like it. And I understand your argument completely. Like, you want baseball. You don't want to be throwing a lot of bells and whistles around you at all times. I get it.
And some of those bells and whistles are cool. Like, at the bobbleheads at Lone Depot. But it's just so much. It's so much.
So, it's not a cop-out. The worst stadium I've ever been to is the first one I ever went to, which is Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. Let's be real. So that's like the complete opposite, because you have all these new ballparks that give you all these things, bells and whistles, the whole thing. Veterans Stadium was like, here is concrete. Here is baseball. Good luck. And, I talked about this. The place smelled. It really did smell. It was gray and dingy, and it was very hot on the field. Summertime was unbearable at the ballpark. It was cavernous. It never was full. It only sold out like maybe opening day, maybe the 4th of July fireworks show, during 4th of July period. And that was it. That's when it sold out. And I have fond memories of the ballpark, and I love it for like very romantic childhood reasons. But I'm being realistic. It was not fun. The food was terrible. Obviously, it was back in the 90s and all that, in the 80s when nobody cared about ballpark food. It was like, you have a hot dog, you have really cheap beer, and that's it, right? So it didn't matter.
And if you're really good, we'll give you some Cracker Jacks.
Yeah, or maybe there's like a soft serve ice cream in a helmet, and that's nice, sure.
Yeah.
But all in all, like, Veterans Stadium was not good. And it obviously hurt players. There's been conspiracy theories that may have some water held to it about players and brain injuries later on in life and things like that. That's a whole thing, and that maybe is a later topic. But there's a lot of things about that era ballpark construction and ballparks experience that just aren't looked at fondly and are problematic in some ways. And yeah, I agree. Veterans Stadium was not good. It just wasn't good. Great place to watch a football team play, football and go crazy with a bunch of old dudes in the 700 level. That was cool. Go Eagles, go Birds. They won the Super Bowl. But yeah, but yes, not a fun ballpark. So that's it. That's that. But I've been to a lot of other ballparks since, and I've loved every one of them for different reasons. So there you go. And that'll do it for Take Me Out for this week in February. Spring training is here. Pitchers and catchers are reporting. You're going to Florida. You're going to Arizona. Have fun. Be safe. Have the time of your life. And please, if you have any questions, anything you want to know about this experience of going to spring training and all that kind of stuff, reach out to us on social media. Also, I have an email address too. We didn't talk about that, but I have an email address. And if you email tim@clamproductions.com, I might make it a more easy to remember email address soon, but tim@clamproductions.com. Ask me anything and I'll get back to you for sure. I promise. But that's it for Take Me Out for this week. Thank you for listening. I'm Tim.
And I'm Alex.
And do you want to say anything at the end here? Do you want to do the Wicked thing again? Or is that like the 1 week or like what?
Let's do it a little different this week and bring it back to the Super Bowl. But, one of the most memeable moments was when during the halftime show, and Kendrick looked at the camera and said, "Say Drake," and it smiled, and people are memeing the crap out of that. One that I loved, it was him with a little thought bubble and it says, "It's baseball season."
It's baseball season. See you next week.
See you next week.